Hey, it's Katie Moran, and here's your Heartfelt Lift. Today I'm here with.
Dr. Kate Steiner. I am a burnout recovery expert, author, and speaker.
I love that so much. And something that I can't wait to share with people today is this idea of burnout and comparing yourself to other people, which I think is each one separately is something that is so heavy and damaging, but putting them together is something that I think is so unique now to this age of social media. So I'd love to hear
Yeah.
what you have to say about it.
Yeah. So I think one of the things, and I so appreciate that we're having this conversation today because one, like as humans, we have the just a natural kind of, I think, drive to compare ourselves to others, right? That's just something we do. We look at where others are at and we compare that to where we're at and we think, what do I need to do to get to that place, or why am I not there yet, and those kinds of things. But all of that does is really just create stress in our lives. And we know that stress and then chronic stress is something that contributes to overall burnout. So when we get into like kind of this comparison mode, we find ourselves feeling more stress, and that creates the space for us to feel more burned out. So if we can get ourselves kind of out of like this comparison zone, that can really help us in our overall well-being, which can have a pretty big impact in us, just in your life in general, and just feeling happier and more at peace with yourself. So I love that we're kind of talking about this today. One of the things that I was thinking about as I was kind of getting ready to chat with you, Katie, is that my own kind of journey when it came to like recognizing comparison. And I remember it was kind of at a point in my life where I was thinking about a career switch. But what I really was focused on was taking like the next step up, like whatever the next step in the career ladder was, that was the next step that I wanted to take. And I ended up taking something that would be considered more of a lateral step. And looking back on that now, I realized that it was exactly the step I needed to take, but it ended up being a step forward. But what I had to do was like turn into the new direction, right? So I think when we release that like comparison mindset, we're able to follow our own path, which is exactly where we need to be.
Yeah, I love that so much. And also this idea that I'm working on this anthology and the theme is lore and
Mhm.
this kind of like what you bring to your story and the idea that like you are the treasure and that like your lore and your history and everything
Yeah.
you've been through that you own, it becomes a treasure map for someone to find themselves as a treasure
Yeah.
inside of them when they read it, and that like our stories, there's so much selflessness in it when we
Mhm.
share because something we might feel incomplete or not enough or feel less than in our stories, and it's like that's the perfect kind of like point touch point for someone who is also feeling that, and it like
Yeah.
it really like transcends. And I think there's like this kind of like perspective that positive emotion is better than negative emotion. And I think
Mhm.
like when you're like really on a mission to help people, like it's like that negative emotion can be transmuted into something that is so like selflessly beyond positive emotions for like a collective, and like your story or your lore doesn't become something that's only yours. And like I
Yeah.
just want to like remind you that like something that might feel like a lateral switch, like for someone else might be like exactly what they need to like move them
Yeah.
forward. And like just like the way you process that as part of your story, like it's like you make that the next step, and it's like how many people are going to be impacted by that next step too, and like
Mhm.
see that as like what like is lateral in comparison to others is actually the next step and the next right step.
Yeah. I think that's so important. Something you said that I think has me thinking about just the impact that we have in the world, and how I think we forget how much of an impact we have on the world and our
Mhm.
space and others around us and those kinds of things. And when, we think about it in terms of like dropping a pebble into like a still like basin of water, right? a small pebble kind of creates all of these waves that continue out far beyond where it was dropped. And I think when we compare ourselves to others, we lose sight of that individual impact that we're making, very much like what you were talking about, in that the impact that we have on the collective around us and other people. And when we get caught up in comparing ourselves to others and what they're doing, we forget about our own pebble.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I love that. And I know it's not everyone's mission to like impact people publicly,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like sometimes like if you go through something and for a mother, like if you can, you know, share that wisdom with your daughter or your best friend, like I think about that and like everyone has a story that can impact people. And even if it's just self-transformation, like the energy that puts into the collective is so powerful, and like one person being happy with their journey and story is so healing for other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes that, yeah. Just I think when we get into comparison, I think when we forget like where we're at and how, that we probably have other people that are comparing themselves to us too.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we get kind of wrapped up in the what is everyone else doing and we lose sight of our own focus. And so that makes me think of it like a couple of tips and things that we can do to kind of support ourselves when we get into that comparison mode. So I think the very first one is something we've already kind of talked about, is that focus on personal growth, right? Where are you growing? Where are you learning? What is the difference between you now and you a year ago or you
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago? Really kind of focusing on that, right? So important for us to like consider the growth and development that we have achieved and
Mm-hmm.
focusing on how far we've come or how much we've changed or what we've grown and learned, because we forget about that. We're in the middle of it, so we forget about like all of those things that we've done differently.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the transformation, the self-transformation is the bulk of the work.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And with that, I think along the way, we have to remember to celebrate those small wins, right? So celebrating yourself along the way, celebrating the achievements that you have become your own cheerleader. I think that that is so incredibly important. And, I know that I love cheering my friends and family on. I love cheering the people I love on. But I have started including myself in like that cheer section, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to cheer Kate on too because I love her and I respect her and I like what she's doing. So I'm going to cheer her on too. So make sure that you are including yourself when you are cheering everybody on and that you are celebrating those small wins.
Yeah, I love that so much. If there's one more tip or message that you want to share with people for them to take away today, what would that be?
Honestly, it's to kind of limit or be intentional about your time on social media. And so,
Ooh.
and I'm not saying that you have to completely like forego social media, but when we get into kind of that mindless scrolling zone of comparing to others and those kinds of things, it's going to negatively impact your day, your mindset, how you're feeling about yourself. But you can do it in an intentional way. Like you can use the journeys of others to inspire what you want to do next or to grow or learn from them. And then you can just ultimately just limit that time that you're in that space as well. And that can positively impact that. So if you're doing those three things, if you're focusing on your own personal growth, if you are celebrating your own wins and you're being intentional about the time that you're looking at others, you're going to feel a greater sense of self, and that is going to positively impact your overall stress management and your overall risk for burnout.
Yeah, something that brings up for me is this idea, and and maybe I'm saying this too much, but like count your happiness with the thank yous you give
Yeah.
and your fulfillment with the thank yous you
Mhm.
receive. And this idea that like with social media, there's so much intention that has to go into it, and that like it could be a springboard, like celebrate other people and use it to
Mhm.
celebrate yourself.
Yeah.
And like, I think like that focused on like transformation and that like self-transformation is so selfless
Hmm.
when you share your story with others. And it could be a meaningful difference in the life of someone else, even if they're a stranger.
That's so true. Yeah, so true.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.